New season, which means one thing. We get to clown on Chelsea again. By the way, new goal for the channel, I want to hit 200k subscribers before the end of the year. Now, what do you get in return for me hitting 200k before 2024? I'll give you San Marino Part 2. Yes, I know, the meme that's been living for the last 3 years somehow. Every single time it dies down, I think it's over. And then it just pops back up again. I don't really know why. The original save did corrupt, but at least I still have all the players' stats, so I can just carry that on to a new version. So yeah, if you want to see me in pain again, get me to 200k before 2024. Anyways, enough of that. Here's a recap of Chelsea's recent endeavors. Chelsea at the beginning of last season was bought by Todd Boehly. The new owner immediately started spending and acquired 7 players for a total of nearly 300 million. Manager at the time, Thomas Tuchel, was given about 3 business minutes to figure out how to mesh all these new players into the squad, and when he couldn't, he was sacked. Boehly then brought in Brighton's manager at the time, Graham Potter. Chelsea at the time were struggling for goals, and Brighton under Graham Potter were also struggling to score goals. Potter was also inexperienced with the man management of Chelsea's magnitude. So when Boehly brought in another 8 players for over 330 million in January, including raw talents like Mykhailo Mudryk, Noni Madueke, and Enzo Fernandez for ungodly amounts of money, it didn't work at all. Chelsea earned the 11th most points and were 6th in least goals scored, and after a loss to Aston Villa, Potter was sacked. Potter had the last laugh though, because he was paid 14 million in compensation. This was the second time in the season for Chelsea, as they had just reimbursed Tuchel. Now looking for a new manager to end the season strong, Chelsea were looking into their options. Many believe the frontrunner for the Chelsea job was Julian Nagelsmann, the former Bayern coach. But Boehly had other ideas and brought in Frank Lampard as caretaker. Frank, before being appointed, had just come off being sacked by Everton. In 19 games, Lampard lost in half of them and only earned 3 victories. During his spell, Everton only scored 15 goals, tied for the second worst in the league at the time. This was the guy Todd Boehly was putting his trust in to revitalize Chelsea's attack. But hey, sometimes a return to your former home will bring some newfound magic.
Chelsea, I'm begging you. Please win tomorrow. Please put in a performance. Please give us fans something to be happy about. I've seen enough! I need a fucking time travel!
If you thought your manager was bad, just be glad your club didn't appoint Frank Lampard. In the last 10 games, Chelsea earned 6 points, the 3rd least amongst the entire league. They won once, drew twice, and lost 7. It gets worse because only Wolves had a worse attack than them. And do you know how you have to be to have a worse attack than Wolves? We're talking about the team that has scored the least amount of goals in the Premier League over the last 3 years. That's like being worse at your job than Vance Joseph. I mean, 9 goals. They couldn't even reach double digits. Oh, don't forget, the Blues were in the Champions League this season too. And when asked what the result of the first leg of Chelsea vs Real Madrid would be, Todd Boehly said this.
I say have a lot of faith, and we're going to win 3-0 tonight.
You cannot tell me Todd isn't just Terry Smith 2.0. It has been a while since that Terry Smith video, so I'm sure a lot of you don't really know who Terry Smith is, but trust me, you'll want to know. There's a video I did about this guy. He's probably the most insane football owner you will ever meet. The video will be right here. Anyways, after a season of pain for Chelsea fans, the team finished the league season in 12th with 44 points, their lowest point total in the Premier League era. All that money, all those new players, 611 million spent, just to be closer to the Championship than the Champions League. Chelsea also, not surprising whatsoever, finished with the 6th worst attack. But a ranking doesn't even come close to showing you the full picture. Despite their mid-table finish, Chelsea averaged the 5th most possession, and most of the time they occupied pretty much every part of the pitch with ease. Problem was, the Blues couldn't create anything of substance. Chelsea underperformed their expected goals by 12.5. That was 2nd worst, only bested by Everton, which is a bit ironic. Kai Havertz, who isn't a natural 9 but was played in that role, was the biggest culprit. He underperformed his expected goals by nearly 5. That was tied for the worst in the league with Patrick Bamford. Bamford, mind you, averaged less shots per 90. Now, one thing to mention about last season was Chelsea suffered more injuries than any other team, 48 to be exact, nearly 10 more than 2nd place Newcastle. That said, Newcastle finished in the top 4. Chelsea finished 11th, with more players than the majority of the league. But hey, it's just just the first season under new ownership. Maybe next season we'll start to see things level out. And a good way to start is for Chelsea and Todd Boehly to correct their mistakes, like parting ways with Frank Lampard. But then the club announced Maurizio Pochettino as manager. He's found success in the Premier League before with his rebuilding of Tottenham. However, his recent stint at PSG showed his man management skills were pretty terrible. Sure, Chelsea don't have Messi, Neymar, or Mbappe, but Pochettino would still have to deal with youngsters who were brought into the club for insane fees. Not to mention, PSG weren't the most cohesive unit under Pochettino. But to be fair, it's not like the club ever invested into a midfield while he was there either. Another massive step was Chelsea throwing away every single piece of deadwood at the club. Hakim Ziyech, Pierre Nothing Personal Emerick Aubameyang, N'Golo Conte, and longtime captain Cesar Azpilicueta all left on a free. Other players left for pretty solid sums of cash. Edouard Mendy, after one of the greatest purple patches, was sent to Saudi club Al Ahly for 18.5 million. Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Christian Pulisic left to Milan for a combined 36 million. Kalidou Koulibaly, after a horrendous year, was sold to Al Hilal for 23 million. Mason Mount's form had fallen off a cliff, and Chelsea didn't see any future with him anymore. So he was sold for 64.2 million to Manchester United. That wasn't even the most insane sale though. Arsenal, playing the role of the geriatric who falls for any IRS scam, was somehow fooled into paying 75 million for Kai Havertz. The only sale that didn't really make sense to me was Mateo Kovacic. I thought he was still good enough to be on that team. He moved to Man City though, and he's doing a lot better now. In total though, Chelsea made over 267 million in sales. Now, when it came to transfers in this season, I initially thought, maybe Chelsea will kind of simmer down a little bit, take a break, maybe they've learned their lesson. I could not have been more wrong. 14 million for 23-year-old goalkeeper Georgia Petrovic from New England Revolution. 31 million for Santos players Angelo and David Washington. 23 million for Brighton keeper Robert Sanchez. 27 million for 18-year-old defensive midfielder Leslie Ugochukwu from Rennes. 45 million for defender Axel Disasi of Monaco. 47 million for Man City's 21-year-old midfielder Cole Palmer. But I'm not done yet. Chelsea were in need of a new striker that could actually finish their chances. Nicholas Jackson was bought for 37 million from Villarreal after scoring 12 league goals last season, but the bigger buy was Christopher Nkunku for 60 million. 16 goals last season for Leipzig and 20 goals and 13 assists in the year before. He's one of the most deadly strikers reaching his prime years. Too bad he got injured and is now out until December. Chelsea then bolstered their midfield with the signing of Romeo Lavia for 62 million, and then finally break a British transfer record to bring in Moises Caicedo for 116 million. In the latest window alone, Chelsea managed to outdo themselves and spent over 462 million in one window. So that now makes the total over €1 billion in one calendar year. The Saudi Arabian government is ruining football, don't get me wrong, but this is as well. Having gone into deep detail about this year's transfers before, I have seen so many mid players be sold for 10 to 30 million. I mean, damn, we just saw Kai Havertz and Mason Mount be sold for over 60 million. The market is Either way, now that Chelsea has a new manager and has spent more than every single one of you watching this over 100 lifetimes combined, the question now was, has Chelsea improved their performances on the pitch? Now, after 6 games played, the Blues currently find themselves 14th. In that stretch, they've suffered losses to West Ham, Nottingham Forest, and Aston Villa. Funnily enough, their record-breaking signing gave away the losing penalty against West Ham on his debut. And their only win is against Luton Town. By the way, quick little fun fact if you will. The last time Chelsea has beaten a team in the top 10, the Queen was still alive. Poch has done well to keep his team from conceding as they've only given away 6 goals, the 3rd best in the league. However, goal scoring is still a massive issue looming over their heads. The Blues are averaging the most possession of any other team currently, and they're also occupying more of the pitch than any other team. Yes, even more than Man City. Chelsea is averaging the 3rd most passes per sequence, and yet they've only scored just 5 times. Sheffield United has scored the same amount of goals, and this club was facing financial difficulties before the beginning of the season. We could go even deeper, of course. How is Chelsea with expected goals? Well, they're the worst underperformers by a whole 2 goals. It's been 6 games, mind you. But to tell you just how bad Chelsea has been in 2023, they've only won 5 times. Chelsea's like football's version of the Cheesecake Factory restaurant food. Every dish is extremely overpriced and expensive, and tastes like shit. want. Again, the club has dealt with numerous injuries, like Christopher Nkunku, of course, and also their skipper, Reece James, after just the first game. However, this club has spent $1 billion over 3 windows. At this point, their spending should provide them depth that doesn't even have them worrying about this. I know Poch is basically building off zero chemistry, but are you really telling me that Chelsea can't even score more goals than f***ing Wolves? And as much as I've criticized Poch's man management skills, I don't really think anyone at the club knows what they're doing. Mykhailo Mudryk, since he's signed with the club, has been terrible, and recently he's been seen in the gym putting in extra work. Someone get this man some film before he becomes the next Ben Simmons, please. Chelsea has a couple more league matches to figure things out, but if things don't change, their next stretch could honestly see negative points. From late October to early December, Chelsea play Everton, Brentford, Tottenham, Man City, Newcastle, Brighton, and Manchester United. So things aren't looking so great for Chelsea fans. Me personally, I'm enjoying it though. But what do you guys think? Will Chelsea start to improve as the months go by, as Poch starts to get more familiar with the team? Or will this club continue to make the same mistakes, go into January, buy 15 players for $7 bajillion, and see absolutely no results after? Let me know. But of course, a massive shout out to all our patrons, including Janos Barash, Stin, Miliway009, Abnazir Makalamkom, Aldipu, Alex Rod, Ulta, Aresan, Carlos Anaya, Chris Damasceno, Daniel Ortiz, Francisco Hernandez, Hysteria, Ilea, Josh Budd, Marco Fujimoto, Miguel Munoz, My Man, Return Fire, Rory Burns, Slider Kid, Sniffers, Taco Okafan, Tana Permilia, Celine Khan, Tomicus, Victor, A1K LCF, Chris Visconti, Q90 Champs 2022, Dominic Griffin, Lewis, Joe Paricio, Lucian Von Croix, Michael Nista, Niche, Patrick Barley, Rowan Cookie, Sylvia Citrus, subscribe to Tende Tim, Unbroken Persona, and Valencia 14. If you'd like to join the Patreon, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow my Twitter if you want, follow my Instagram if you like, follow my TikTok, you can follow it if you want, and of course you can follow my semi-active Twitch. But until then, I'll see you guys.